can go ahead and begin at this point. First of all, good morning, and thank you to everybody who's taken the time to be with us today. My name is Sumani Dash. I am the Managing Director of American Friends of HelpAge India. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has been set up primarily to raise awareness about the challenges facing elders in India today and to mobilize resources for HelpAge India's programs on the ground across the country. As many of you would know, HelpAge is a 44-year-old nonprofit organization that has been working at a national scale in India to serve disadvantaged elders. So the way we're structuring today's event is that we'll have initial remarks and comments, including from a special guest who I'll introduce in a bit, followed by a moderated discussion with the HelpAge CEO and our program leads. That really makes up a big part of our leadership team in India. And these are the folks implementing the projects on the ground. Please feel free to add your comments or questions to the chat box, and we will try and take those up during the discussion today. I wanted to start also by specifically thanking the CEO of HelpAge, Mr. Rohit Prasad, as well as the mission lead, Dr. Ritu Rana, who heads healthcare, Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed, who leads our aged care program, as well as Rajeshwar, who leads the disaster relief and livelihoods program. So I know it's very late in India, so a very special thanks for being flexible and staying up late today. I should just to sort of in terms of background, just wanted to mention that today's event is the first such program that we're doing geared towards the US geography. Our main objective really is to focus on the resources we have raised here in the US and how these serve elders in India. This support has been especially helpful during the COVID period. I won't get into it, but obviously everybody knows the intensity and really devastating impact that the second wave of COVID especially had on elders in India, and that really bore the brunt, I would say. And through HelpAge, we receive through American Friends of HelpAge India and our presence here, we received a lot of support from members of the Indian American diaspora, well-wishers of India, individuals that contributed directly through employer matching campaigns, through corporations, and so forth. So this is our way of thanking all those who donated, who continue to be interested in the HelpAge cause and want to learn more about beyond COVID, how do we plan to sort of continue helping elders in all of the programs on the ground, etc. And we're really in the beginning stages of building the HelpAge brand and presence here in the US. So if any of you would like to volunteer, engage with us more deeply, please do reach out after the event, and would love to chat more. So on that note, I'd like to kick off today's event with a quick video that I think summarizes the HelpAge cause much better than I think any number of words can. So may I request our host, Vishnu, a special thanks to Vishnu also for hosting today, to play the Forgotten Elders video. Thank you, Vishnu. I think, as I was saying, I think that summarizes sort of the whole challenge around aging, at least in terms of visually. But Just to set the tone and background, I'd like to now invite Mr. Rohit Prasad, the CEO of HelpAge India, to make his initial remarks.
Thank you, Sumani. Well, we are all delighted to be here, and thank you everyone for joining. As Sumani said, this is our first interaction with the supporters of AFHI, so we welcome that very much. So let me start by giving you a little bit of perspective, and I wanted to share this, few pages as well. So I'll start where Sumani, the video ended, and it talked about the forgotten elders. So what do we mean by when we say the forgotten elders? Now, clearly, in our homes, the elders are very precious. We love them. But somewhere at a societal level, somewhere at the overall community level, we feel that the elders are getting forgotten, and sadly, but unfortunately, we sometimes refer to them as the last and the lost. That is, they are not in the priority list. So when we talk about aging and elders, and why should we care more about this particular subject? And if you look at in the world, aging is a mega trend, and it is something that is a trend, but it's also very silently happening. It goes unnoticed, it goes unignored. So in many of the policy and programs framework, it goes unnoticed. However, the impact that it's going to have on any country's development agenda is going to be very significant. It's almost in the nature of a public health or a climate change issue, and like those, it is multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary impact. For example, aging will have impact on the financial systems, the pension system, the health systems, the workforce, how the workforce will get structured. So it's a very important subject. And therefore, it has many ramifications. I'll walk you through some of them that we feel are very important in our work. So, at the heart of it is about living longer. And longevity is something that has been very often talked about. And we see longevity, everybody sees longevity as a blessings. One of the most famous blessings that in India, somebody gives is Ayushman Bhava, which is, may you live long. And that is something that we have all heard, that blessing. So how do we look at it? And that's the fundamental question that we are putting, is that how do we look at it and how should we look at it? So at the age of 60, anyone in India or across the world has a very high chance of living up to 80 years old. So at least 20 years life beyond 60. And if you take it a 80 years lifespan time frame, we are looking at 1/4 of the life. So how is that 1/4 of the life going to be lived? Is it isolated, neglected, or is it going to be productive and fulfilling? That is the fundamental question that we all have before us. And therefore, the longevity is not just about lifespan, it's also about health span, and the health span leads to what quality of life it will be. So I'll just borrow one framework from WHO, and it talks about life course approach to aging. But the essence of that is about what is the line that people will traverse. And we know that over age, there is a curve that comes down, and that's part of the biological part of the aging process, and the intrinsic capacity, as it refers to the capabilities in both physical and mental, it does go down. But at the same time, there are systems that the health services, the long-term care environment, and the enabling environment, and much of our work fits into this domain, which is what kind of services we provide, the long-term care, the caregiving, and that allows the intrinsic capacity of people who are aging to move up. And when that moves up, then we also have the aspect of functional ability, which is how people are going to live their lives in terms of the day-to-day life. That is going to make a difference. So if there is a better way in which we are able to address vision, for example, then the person's mobility and therefore the person's ability to interact with the community goes up. And that's the quality of life that matters. Of course, it's not only about starting to think about 60, it's also about thinking early during the lifespan. how the next post 60 life or post 50 life is going to be led. Now, aging and quality of life has a very strong linkage to the dignity and independence. And we often say that at the later stage of life, when you've accomplished something, the dignity and the independence will be a very important part of what we, how we lead our lives. So the health, safety, engagement, activity, all that becomes very material because there are challenges, but these are the very important aspects of life. So if I step back and I look at India's overall as a country, we have about 140 million who are 60 plus. It's 10% of the population. And over a period of time, over the next 30 years, this number is going to move to 320, 340 million, which is about 20% of the population. So 1 in 10 right now, but in 30 years, in 1 in 5. And this is going to be very different from what other countries have gone through. And because of our demographic and fertility changes, the pattern, we are going to do this journey in a very short span of time. Others took much longer. Others also developed, and then they became aged. We are going to be somewhere middle of the path and still be looking at a large aging population. We already the second largest population of elderly in the world. Just out of curiosity, China is number 1 at 260 million, and that's about 18% of their population, and they will reach about 40% of the population by 2050. So the video also captured about what is the status of the elderly in the country right now. And we have a segment of the elderly who are living good lives, and they are in the better part of the elderly equation. But you also have a very large section who are disadvantaged, and they are 50% below poverty line, 90% unorganized sector. We went through these statistics, but socially also we see a lot of abuse coming in. And part of the reason is the societal changes that are leading to the rising abuse in the society. The COVID, of course, and Sumani mentioned about that, the COVID was we saw this unfolding across the world. India also went through a very difficult stage, but the elderly particularly faced the brunt. And we say it's almost like a triple brunt because health was the most, the most, way in which they got impacted, but it also lost an income, and the isolation was something that was very, very problematic for them. And we also saw gaps in the systems and services. For example, the whole digital divide came up. Everybody got into the digital way, but they were having a hard time catching up. Some good stories as well. The vaccination was a priority, and even HelpAge worked a lot on the vaccination side. But because they were prioritized, vaccination reached them. Other services had a tough time reaching them. And of course, the existing social inequities made it far worse. So as HelpAge, HelpAge has been working. I have been more recently associated along with my colleagues, but HelpAge has been working single-mindedly focused on elder care for the last 40 years. And we believe that we are at an inflection point where the role will be even more important as we go forward. And our mission and vision are focused on creating an age-friendly and an age-inclusive environment. But what do we believe in? Because ultimately, as an organization, we have certain underpinnings of our values and principles. And we believe that the society, of course, everybody, and including the society and every member of the society, the valuing the older people. I think that's a very important part. But how do we value them? I think the fundamental notion that we have is that we must build their capacity. We must empower them because it's their right to have a good life. Everybody has a right to good life, but their capacity to engage in the society, participate in the society is what is very fundamental. And for that, health is required, connections are required, social, isolation is something that must be removed. But at the same time, because of age, there will be a situation where they'll need support. And a large section of the society of the elders do need that support. And that is where we come in and care for them. So we have to be there to care for them. So these are the underpinnings that we believe in, and a lot of our work is driven by that. The American Friends of HelpAge India, which is AFHI, was a setup that was created about a few years ago. because we believe that no matter where it's not about where somebody is across the world. I think we all share the same values. People who are part of the diaspora share the same values, and we believe that we all need to partner in building this in India that is age inclusive and a better future for all of us. So we are deeply grateful and delighted that we have a group of supporters who have believed in us, who have placed trust in us, and we hope to, in this conversation, further that and share some of the work and answer some of the questions that you may have. Thank you. Somani, over to you.
Thank you, Rohit, for so nicely summarizing really the mission and the core objectives of, as well as the challenge around aging. I think that was very well put. And some of the words that you picked up on, dignity, value, these are the, I think, big issues that elders face. And I know for a lot of folks that are here that have ties back home, those that are especially dealing with elderly parents, etc., it's a especially emotive issue. And these might be, I'm sure there are folks that are well resourced, but not even being the geographical distance certainly makes things more complicated. But then we think about the big swath of people that have no such resources or family support, and that's really the demographic that HelpAge is trying to assist. So it's a very important cause. I would like to now invite a very special guest. Her name is Isha Yadav, and she is a 9th grade student from California who last year wrote a very touching and award-winning essay about the elderly in India. And I would love to have her speak a little bit about why this issue is important to her. She also dedicated her prize money to HelpAge. So thank you, Isha, for being with us today. And Vishnu, if I could request you to give Isha the ability to speak.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Can you turn on your video, do you think? So we can all see you?
I don't think I'm able to.
Okay, sorry. Okay, well, we can hear you. So go ahead.
Awesome. So I'll just start with speaking. So thank you so much, Samani, for having me. And thank you to HelpAge India. It's a pleasure to be here today. So for me, family connection has always been very important. And my grandparents have especially been very close to me, even though they live far away. And my grandfather especially, he worked really hard in his lifetime. Yet when he retired at 60, life reached a standstill. He lived till 90 years old, so he faced 30 years of time to fill. He didn't have a clear purpose to achieve or kids to take care of. And as comes with old age, he became frail and his mobility became weak. And he was unable to participate in regular social activities or engagements. There weren't even that many social engagements to participate in. When my family looked for activities to keep him engaged and happy, we found very few, and some were only for those without mobility issues. After this, I interviewed more elderly in India, and I realized that this problem exists for most of them. They all have such interesting hobbies, yet there's no structured way for them to continue pursuing them. Ultimately, there's nothing really to bring joy and purpose in their life. Now imagine this problem for someone without resources, someone without kids who are constantly on their side. That breaks my heart. My grandpa and other people I interviewed still had resources. Yet, as you've heard, much of India is still under the poverty line and don't have those resources. Isolation that is already so pressing is only amplified, and the elderly generation is only growing. So these problems are only going to get more widespread. When I had the choice to share my voice and write an essay, I knew I had to write it on this topic. And when I was given the choice to donate the prize money that I'd won, I was looking for organizations that catered toward helping the elderly, and I was happy to support my mission through HelpAge India. Now, I'm a first-generation American who happens to have ties with India, but many of my friends here don't. I believe that bringing joy and well-being to the elderly population should be our problem too. Even though you may not have family in India or may not even be Indian, you can still help change the life of an Indian elderly. Remember, let age wrinkle the skin and not the spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Isha. That was so beautifully ported. I again appreciate that you're taking time out of your school day. That's a special thanks to your teacher for sparing you from classroom, and it adds so much value to have you here with us. And I think you will go on to inspire a lot of other people just by how articulate you are. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'd love to sort of kick off into the moderated part of this discussion. And I would love to invite Isha to ask the first question if she has one for the panel. So Isha, back to you.
Sure, I'd love to. So as you know, I believe that elderly people like my grandfather deserve to feel like they have a purpose in this world and are given the resources to fulfill that purpose. So my question is, how does HelpAge India help the elderly people find that purpose in their life that they so deserve?
Thank you. May I request Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed, who heads the aged care vertical, perhaps to tackle that question?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Sumni. Isha, very nice to hear from you. It's really heartening to see youngsters who are as motivated and as driven to a cause for elderly who are at their sunset years of their life. Not many appreciate that, and you've got a very special gift appreciating what you have done here with your articulation and your support to HelpAge India. I'll try to answer your question in few points. So basically, HelpAge India understands and recognizes this need. In the day, Indian time, we had a webinar where we had a similar discussion on the need for recreation for the elderly, for engagement, and where do we go from here. HelpAge is doing certain things in this regard. I'll just like to give you an overview and our attend and audiences and the work that we do. So we are linked to 5,000 senior citizen associations across the country. These are basically elderly who are retired, who are basically looking at some mode of engagement, some platform for engagement. So we have facilitated them, brought them together, helped register them as senior citizen association. And as a result, you'll be happy to note that we have 1 million elderlies who are part of this group, and they are actually organized into SCAs. We call them SCAs. They have their own building and they contribute a small amount for the upkeep and running. And HelpAge helps them in various aspects of their recreation and engagement. For example, we provide digital literacy to them. There is a lot of volunteering opportunity that we create for them, and intergenerational interaction through the school children and interaction with them is something that we do. We link them virtually to various entertainment programs. For example, during the first wave, before the first wave, we had the Alka Yagnik night for them with one of the corporate, where they enjoyed a lot, the musical night. Currently, we have a large project from Google on educating these elderly on digital safety that we were rolling up across the country. We have a daycare center initiative. Secondly, we have around 30 centers which we are experimenting across 3 states, where basically these are centers where elderly come for recreation, engagement, and socialization. I'll give you some example. We have some centers in Kerala, Nayantikara, in Chulikal, where we have elders come and engage for art and craft. So there is a bus which brings this elderly from their own homes and bring them to the center where they spend the entire day. So they are engaged in art and craft. There are skill building exercises. They have musical classes. They learn to pursue their hobby. For example, we ran a center in Bhubaneswar where there were a lot of middle class and upper middle class elderly who had a lot of skills. Some of them were school teachers, some of them were doctors. So they said they want to do something. So they reached out to slum children and taught them various subjects. There were some doctors, retired doctors, who said, we'll carry out some health clinics and camps in the slum area, which they carried out with our support. We have a daycare center in Delhi where elderly are involved in looking at health, education, livelihood, skilling of unemployment youth as a community development activity where they're taking the lead. Through our home care project, we identify volunteers. Many of them are elderly who are fit and active elderly who are trained in caregiving, and they reach out to their compatriot, their age group, people who are bedbound and immobile. Some of the examples of what we're trying to do, I know the canvas is very large, the potential is huge, but certainly we made a beginning, and we are working towards impacting the lives of the elderly through all this engagement. I hope I've been able to answer your question to a certain extent. If there is any doubt, please feel free.
Thank you, Imtiaz. Certainly, HelpAge seems to be doing quite a bit to try and ward off that issue of social isolation and finding value in sort of this, for the elderly segment that really perhaps feel marginalized to some degree once they're out of the formal workforce. At this point, Rohit, could I just turn back to you on, how did COVID really impact HelpAge India's programmatic strategy? Well, I'm sure there's a big impact, obviously, on the fundraising ability, but also just on service delivery. And have there been new programs that have perhaps taken shape that are perhaps more important now? And any big lessons as a nonprofit serving such a vulnerable segment? Would just love to hear some thoughts from you.
Sure, Sumani. I think it's a very important, I think very important question. So when COVID actually came, and in the initial phases, it was completely unknown. So we were all grappling to see how we can. It was not about elders in the beginning. It was about the fact that many marginalized, many vulnerable population were feeling the brunt of the lockdown. And that's how it started. It is in India. And so as an organization, we felt that we have an obligation to serve in the community. So as a first wave, when the first wave hit, we as an organization were amongst the first organizations who were out there in the field responding to a crisis. And that crisis was more in terms of food and rations for people. It was about, getting across to them. And so we did several important things. For example, we have a helpline and the people call into our helpline. But during that particular phase, we reversed our helpline to start calling people and inquiring about their well-being, because many of the senior citizens were completely left, kind of locked into their houses. So they did not have access to even basic food, access to health. So you can imagine somebody living alone, and 10% of the elderly live alone. And they did not know how to get basic medical services or basic rations and foods. So our first response was purely humanitarian. We went out and started helping people. Over a period of time, the impact on the elderly as COVID hit more, from infection, hospitalization, and death perspective, the elderly started facing a lot of the brunt, and we could see them getting impacted. So health was the second important intervention that we did. And at that stage, the government was preparing the groundwork for how the response should happen. And we were literally pushing the district administration to allow our mobile health units to operate. So even though it took time, we adapted and adopted into that particular system, because we realized that the chronic care, people who are on diabetes medications, hypertension medications, they were not able to access the care that they needed, the medicines that they needed. So we went out and actually started delivering the medicines to their homes, because they were not able to come out of their homes. So a lot of our programming became very COVID oriented. So we retained what we were doing. We added the humanitarian aspect, and a lot of the program, be it on aged care, health care, started becoming very COVID oriented. And over the last 2 years, we have kept that as a priority, as has the rest of the country and the government systems done. And now we are beginning to look at how we keep our program frame intact, but at the same time, we have started adding newer dimensions. So mental health was a very important area we have started picking up. And recently we launched a big program on mental health, where we are beginning to train the family members, the community members, who are able to recognize much earlier the aspect of dementia, depression, very two important areas. And similarly, on the helpline aspect, we have now scaled up to many districts through the working in partnership with the government as what's called the Elder Line. Is probably one of the most innovative programs I would say, across the world, where the government of India runs 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's an elder line, program, and we are partners in 8 of the states, to helping elderly. So to answer your question, we did change significantly our programming during the COVID phase. And now, as part of our ongoing approach, we have added newer areas while strengthening the earlier ones and making it much more, I would say, future, oriented, because some of the needs of the elderly have, the needs were there, but they came out much more starkly. And some of the health needs and care needs are continuing, and they are something that we are focusing on. You are on mute, Sumani. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Rohit, for that. And on the healthcare side, obviously, there's a lot of need, like you mentioned, that came up during COVID, and there were already pre-existing issues at play. And HelpAge has obviously been servicing those through some of the healthcare verticals. And as I turn to Dr. Ritu Rana, I would actually love to first just play a quick video to show the mobile health unit initiative. Again, pictures and videos, I think, speak louder than anything else that we can say. So Vishnu, if you could please go ahead and play that for us.
मेरा नाम इंद्रवली ब्रिजमोहन गौर है। मैं चारकोप कांदीवली से आता हूँ। हमको चलने मिलने में थोड़ा तकलीफ होता है, हार्ट का प्रॉब्लम है और चलने में हमको दम आता है। किसी ने बोला हमको दवा मिलता है, मैं यहाँ आने लगा। जब से मैं 2-2.5 साल से आता हूँ। उसके पहले मैं सर्विस करता था, सर्विस ब्रेक कर दिया क्योंकि हमको ऊपर नीचे या साइड पर आना जाना हमको तकलीफ होता था। मेरे मिसेस का भी बाईपास ऑपरेशन हुआ है, उनके लिए भी हम दवा पानी किधर से भी नहीं बंदोबस्त कर पाता, इसलिए हम अपना भी नहीं कर पाता। तो हमारे जो लड़का काम करता है, इतनी आमदनी नहीं है कि हम अपना भी खर्चा करें और उसका भी खर्चा कर सकते हैं, इसलिए हमने वो सर्विस छोड़ दिया और अपनी दवाई में यहाँ आने लगा। और अभी हमको जो दवा आता है, दम आता है, वो हमको काफ़ी नॉर्मल है, अच्छा है।
Vishnu. I personally find that video very touching, and on just continuing on that healthcare segment and the work that HelpAge is doing, Ritu, if you could, obviously the mobile health unit initiative is one that has been continuing under the HelpAge banner for many years. If you could, and this is also the program, one of the programs that when we sent the grant from American Friends of HelpAge India to HelpAge last year, primarily for COVID relief. The MHU initiative is where a big portion of that funding went. So we'd love to hear from you if you can speak about this program, any specific impact that COVID had, and sort of your plans for the future.
Thank you, Samani. So the mobile healthcare unit is actually a mobile OPD, which is run on the van, and it has a doctor, a pharmacist, we dispense the medicines there, and a lab technician sometimes, or not, or a nurse or a counselor, and a driver, of course. So the van goes to the remote areas of the community, and it serves weekly basis. Why? Because everyone has to continue their treatment, especially for the long-term treatment, like for the non-communicable diseases, which are chronic in nature, diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, COPD, like those diseases. So every week this van goes in the particular site, and which is a pre-designated site. People know about that because they have been earlier informed that on this day, this time, this van will come here, and they seek the consultation and also the free medicines and some of the lab investigation which are necessary. So this mobile health unit provides the primary health care. For the secondary health care, we refer the patients to either the government facilities or the higher centers. Those, we have this such kind of vans around 170 across the country and various parts wherever the need is most. During the COVID times, when the lot of OPD treatments were not happening and everything was closed, so the hospitals were engaged with only the emergent services. And during the peak of the time, the emergent services were also not operating. So these mobile health units, even that time, were going to the field with the permission of local authorities and providing that healthcare which is needed at most at that particular time, providing the medicines to the patients which have been taking the medicines for the diabetes, for the hypertension, and they had to continue it so that they don't land into the complications. So the mobile health unit, it also goes to the provide the home care services. I am looking at one of the questions where somebody is asking, how do you provide the home care? So apart from that clinical regular OPD services, doctor also goes to the person who is bedridden or not able to visit that particular site where the van is standing. And the doctor and the team, his team or her team, they go to the person, they assess the health situation of the person and provide the medicines and whatever the need is there at the home, at the doorstep. So this is where we call it mobile health unit or the healthcare at the doorstep and reaching to the unreached person. And this is about the mobile health unit and how they are living. During the COVID time, especially, we worked through the HelpAge in 3 areas, which is Puri in Odisha, Muzaffarpur in Bihar, and Mathura in UP. So these are the 3 locations where we particularly work with the support of HelpAge in these areas, and around 10,000 people from these areas have been supported by this support, and they have been provided the healthcare services through this.
Thank you, Ritu. So I know the help has been sort of spread across the country, and somebody on the chat also did ask where all HelpAge operates. And Rohit, if you wanted to just tackle on the national scale, it's 26 states of India. Is that correct?
Right. So HelpAge is a national organization. We are directly present in 17 states with our offices, but through our projects, we are present in about 25 plus states. It's 250 districts out of, so almost like 1/4 of all the districts in India. And our projects are a very high presence in the rural areas. And Rajeshwar will talk about some of the work that we are doing in rural areas. So we are present in almost all states. Some of our reach has also expanded through some of our elder line work that we are doing. We are directly on the ground in the community, and that's something that we, characterizes us, that we are working very closely with the community. And because of our vaccination work, because, during COVID times, the vaccination became a very important preventive measure, and the elderly were getting left behind in this particular exercise because of various reasons, understanding, awareness, mobility issues. So we launched a special initiative to bridge that gap. And through that, we have now present in, even more states, because we were expanding based upon the funding that we were receiving. So, so overall, national in character, national in scale and scope. But of course, there are many pockets that are still, unreached, if I may say so. And through the CSR and some of the support that we get from individual donors, we are able to launch many programs that we are able to reach out to more people.
Sure. And yeah, I was delighted that actually the vaccine program was supported in a big part from USAID, and that's something that was initiated from the US, and it's a very good example of US-India partnership that really benefits a very vulnerable segment of society. So we really would want to thank US, taxpayers for their help.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd also like to just pivot to the livelihoods program, because, when we think about people and sort of that after retirement, and their, especially those out of the sort of formal safety net, if you will, and how do these people then, continue to live a life of dignity if they don't have a regular income, etc. So I'd love to invite, before I bring in Rajeshwar, I know we have Arnav Sen, who's the CEO of Reventix, and he is somebody who's engaging very deeply with our work here at American Friends of HelpAge India. So I would like to invite Arnav to come in at this point. And Vishnu, if I could please request you to give Arnav the ability to speak, please. Arnav, if you're there.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi,
Go ahead.
and visible. Hi. Hi.
And visible as well. That's great. So, no, thank you for this opportunity. And clearly, listening to everything that has been said so far, it definitely strikes a chord in everyone's heart, saying that, look, there is a problem out here that we really need to be more focused on as a group. And, I understand the good work that the HelpAge India is doing. And to the extent that, FHI is able to support that as well, it's a pleasure. So being in the US, obviously, people like us, I think, these are the forums which gives us a good flavor of exactly what's happening and how we are able to contribute. So that, to me, is interesting. Some of the statistics which were rolled out today was very eye-opening and also shocking to an extent, right? I think, Sumani, one of the stats that you talked about is that, maybe it was the video that talked about it, that only less than 0.04% of the GDP of India is actually being spent in terms of the welfare for old age people. So that's really a shocking number. So, having looked at that and then also looking at the fact that, 15 to 20% of the elderly people are actually abused by their own kin, that's again shocking. So again, I'm glad to be part of this forum and, talking through and discussing these issues and see that how we can do. Now, Rajeshwar, I know you're going to talk about this on the livelihood section, but I did have a question for you as you touch upon this. When you talk about livelihood of people, it's important from an isolation perspective, and attacking that is to ensure that they have the right skills to be able to look at new and sustainable modes of livelihoods. And I'm very curious that what has been your experience specifically when it pertains to the rural elders in terms of skill building, because that's going to be very important, and you are trying to prevent isolation. And I would imagine that that's a key component of what you're doing.
Rajeshwar, over to you.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sain, for that start that you have given. Just to add one more statistic to what Sumani was saying, only 93% of the 14.6 crore elderly or 146 million elderly are from the unorganized sector, which means only 7% get any kind of security. Okay, be it social pensions or whatever, and the pension numbers are really dismal. So that increases as Mission Head Livelihoods and as HelpAge the problem so much that the pensions are only going to a minuscule 20% of those people who actually require. That's about 3 crore people only get. That's 30 million people who get pensions. So there's a huge gap. And as rightly identified by Mr. Sain, I hope I can call you Mr. Sain, Arnab. Okay. So what we do is we don't go with the typical income generation programs. And luckily that has saved us during COVID. And our work during and post-COVID has been where the TV cameras stopped, because the TV cameras were covering the returning migrant children, but these migrant children from cities were going back home back to their parents who originally used to depend, but now these parents are supposed to take care of their own children who are returning back, which means their income generation sources had to be upskilled, and made sustainable so that tomorrow, God forbid, another COVID, luckily we stopped at COVID second wave. So that means they had to be upskilled. So what we did is to give, I cannot hack the whole thing. So what we try to identify is what are those livelihoods that are immediately saleable? Like what are people good at? Then we also got in touch with one of the foundations that were helping develop N95 type of masks which are reusable. So we got our elderly men and women. You know, I wanted to say men because usually people feel that men cannot work or men do not stitch. So we have trained them on an IICT, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, developed mask making, patented. And now these elderly started not only stitching, but also supplying it to their own elderly, whom we call in elder self-help group, something that promotes inclusion, that also takes care of the isolation bit, Mr. Sen, because they all come sit together on a daily basis, more or less, stitching this mask, making masalas, etc. But these are your regular kind of a thing. And you know, the mask making happened to be just the COVID season. From there, what we started to do is identify market linked livelihoods. So what are those products that have an immediate need in the neighboring market, be it an urban town or a city? So link them up with the local, market traders, introduce the concept of collective production, collective marketing. And what we have decided is, thanks to the COVID, we realize that if there is a lockdown, all the goods that are perishable, they're going to move 3 steps back. So what we have identified is 2 steps above. That is, if something is being produced in the village, it should be sold maximum at the district level and not beyond. If my market is beyond the district, then that is increasing my risk for the elderly. The third thing that we are now doing is introduce digital literacy. Now we will be surprised to rural elderly who are semi-literate, illiterate, but now they are able to operate on Google Pay. They are able to take orders on WhatsApp. Okay, because we introduced those products, that these are products available. And there are many youngsters who like to have food back from home. So they like something that is made by elderly. And only yesterday, the Sikkim, somebody was asking where all do you work, even in Northeast. In Sikkim, they have Sikkim and Nagaland, they have wonderful bamboo products, which many would like to take even in Bombay. Now, this has helped the elderly because of otherwise they were dependent on a third party, a middleman or a middleman usually, to take the produce to the market. Now these people are able to go onto Facebook. They are able to do a video chat with the customer, usually corporate employees sitting in Bombay, and show them these are the products that we have. Similarly, Pochampally saris, which are handloom saris, which are GI, patented. So they are able to sell those products, and it's interesting, and it's probably the first time that 1,300 semi-literate elderly men and women actually cleared an online examination, and they're now certified by the Ministry of Electronics and IT. So these are the various things that we are trying to do. So no more doing, your regular papad bailing and all that. Yes, that can work, but we'll have to change along with the changing times. Finally, elderly are the best environment warriors. So what we realized is, because during COVID also there was this huge push on multivitamins, nutritious diet and all. And when we did a sort of sample study, we realized that the elderly were actually undernourished. There is nutrition. We have a huge data on child nutrition, not so much on geriatric nutrition. So now what we did is we merged the concept. They are very good in agriculture. So we started, kitchen gardening with fruit cropping and using of, environment-friendly natural pesticides and this thing. The moment you add something that is green, immediately there's a market, and these people are able to practice. So these are small little things that are happening, which 5,000 elder self-help groups, that's about 75,000 elderly are now practicing. And so this is how we are going. I hope I have answered and more.
So that was wonderful. And Rajesh always, I think, brings in a very nice way to, again, convey the message about how important skills and livelihoods are, and the fact that elders can pick up new skills. So this idea that, it's sort of learning being a lifelong journey, I think that really comes through the elder self-help groups, which Rajeshwar, I know, has been a big proponent of. Just in the interest of time, and I'm looking at the clock, I think we have time for 2 more questions. And I'd love to bring in Reni Poulos, who's the president of the Malayali Association of Northern California. They recently, I recently actually had a chance to meet with her, and she handed me this donation in person. And this funding is going towards some of the active aging centers in Kerala. So Reni, if I could request you, I know you had a question you wanted to ask. So Vishnu, if you could please give Reni the ability to speak. Reni, I think you're on mute. So if you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can hear you.
now. Hi, Reni.
Okay. Hi. Hello. My name is.
Hi.
Go ahead, Reni.
Okay.
Looks like we lost Reni. But Imtiaz, I'm sure Reni will join in again. But could you please just speak about those active aging centers in Kerala, perhaps?
Yes, Ramani, thank you. So basically, the support that the Malayali Association gave, through the agency of Reni and others, we have used it for our active aging center in Nadavayal and Idukki district. So basically, these are districts which are tribal district in Kerala with the lowest per capita income, lowest literacy, and lowest gender ratio. It would be very surprising to everyone because Kerala is supposedly very high on Human Development Index, but these are districts which are very backward in Kerala. There was an agrarian distress that has happened of late. The production of cash crops and agricultural crop has witnessed a steep fall. And witnessing a return of the farmer suicide, which is very peculiar to Kerala. We generally hear about farmer suicide in Bidar area, Maharashtra and others, but here, farmer suicide has actually happened. It was badly affected during COVID-19, and there was a double whammy where, along with the pandemic, the floods were also happening in these places. So through the Active Aging Center, we have been able to provide those care because of income insecurity. Majority are depending on public health delivery. So when during COVID, the hospitals were kind of devoted to COVID care, the Active Aging Center actually helped the locals and especially the senior in Nadavayal and Idukki provide that care. So we have been providing them weekly medical consultation, distribution of medicine, vital checkups, physiotherapy services, counseling, and mental health assistance. We're providing assistive devices and home care. So as many as around in this financial year, close to 2,000 elderly and community people have been benefited through this center, including the flood relief and the COVID care relief that we've done.
Thank you.
Reni is back.
Go ahead, Rohit.
No, I said
Reni is
Reni, we
back.
can see Reni now. So maybe she wanted to say something.
Yes, Reni, go ahead if you can.
I think audio is.
Reni, are you able to hear us?
She's connecting
Yeah,
to audio.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Sumani. I think we will.
Yeah, I think we're having some technical issues on Reni's side, perhaps. So we'll connect. But thank you for India's for walking us through some of those programs in place. There is one other question in the chat that I wanted to make sure that we answered. And somebody, Dave Dave is asking what percentage of our contribution goes to the elderly and how much goes towards administrative expenses. So Rohit, perhaps from an organizational point of view.
Sure. So as a matter of our approach, we obviously try to have the maximum amount of the funding, serve the, go directly to the program and the beneficiaries and the people whom we serve. So we, as a policy, we keep 10%. So 90% of the funds go directly into the program. So when I say directly, it is something that is a complete pass through and goes to the benefit of the, of the people whom we serve. The 10% is what we have as a cost of the organization, delivery cost, monitoring cost, program overview cost, and that is how we approach it. So every project, 90% will go directly to the program and the beneficiaries.
Thank you. And just from American Friends of HelpAge India, because we are a 501c3 here with our own expenses and a separate board and all of that, and we're trying to follow the exact same, and about 90% or so goes towards direct programmatic support to HelpAge India, and only about 10% or so for overheads. But of course, we're at a much younger part of our journey here. So I think we're almost at the end of our allotted time. Before we wrap up, I would love to have Rohit perhaps just say a few final comments, thoughts, and then we have a brief video that we wanted to show.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumani. I think, first of all, I would just, extend on behalf of HelpAge India and AFHI a big thanks and gratitude to all who have placed trust in us, who have given support, who are engaging with our cause. This is a cause that is close to everybody's heart. We were just trying to bring out certain dimensions of our work and the broader aging-related cause that I think we all need to engage on, and as well as build an age-friendly society, as we call it, for a better future. Not just for the current elders, but for people who are following behind and who will reach that stage at some point of time. So overall, I think we love to engage. We would love to answer your questions. Our website and our communications, we put out as much information that as possible. So from a transparency perspective, all our finances, we got ourselves, CRISIL, which is a Standard & Poor company, we got ourselves rated, and we were rated VO1A, which is both on program delivery as well as financial transparency, the highest rating. So we do our best to come across, doing, of course, community-based work, at the same time building systems and processes that allows donors and supporters to see their work with all the visibility and transparency in where it is going. But we would love to hear more from you, and we would love to answer all your questions and engage. We, as AFHI, is relatively in the early years, and some of you who have given your trust with us. So a deep, a big thanks to all of you, and we hope to continue to engage with you on this journey. If any of you are in India, we would love to host you, take you to one of our programs, and you could see in person how we work, what work we do, and also bring suggestions onto the table so we can continue to modify and build our work as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rohit. And, again, like I think I said in the beginning, we would love to hear from anybody that wishes to volunteer, to engage more deeply, to really help us get the word out that HelpAge actually does have a US affiliate through which you can support, donate, contribute in different ways. And our website is www.af-hi.org. My email is sumani.dash@af-hi.org. So please feel free to reach out if I can be helpful in any way. And before, again, we wrap up, Vishnu, if you could go ahead and play that little video that we have that I think relates really well to the holiday season we're in. Well, thank you again to everybody who took the time to be with us. I know it's a Friday afternoon at this point, or morning for some of you, and really, again, appreciate your engagement, your interest, and hope to hear from you. Please consider donating if you feel the urge to do so during this holiday season, and we hope this will not be the last time that we're in this sort of setting together. And thank you all once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you to the whole panel.
Thank
Really
you. Namaste,
Bye.
everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.